Welcome back to another edition of Home Inspection Bites, where we're taking the high road to give you the high ground advantage in your home inspection career. Today, the topic is going to be all about bootleg grounds and the very dangerous reverse polarity bootleg ground. Like you saw in a previous video, we've got a little demonstration here, got it all wired up, ready to go, and we're going to show you exactly how it is you, the home inspector, can identify the potential for a bootleg ground without having to buy a lot of fancy equipment.
A bootleg ground is when someone runs a jumper wire from neutral to ground at the outlet. This is done to trick the home inspector into believing some of the branch circuits are grounded in an older house. While our three-pronged testers have limited functionality and can't identify the problem, we can identify the potential for a bootleg ground without taking the outlet apart. Here we have three outlets, protected by a GFCI. When we test the GFCI, it trips and resets properly. But when we test either of the two downstream outlets, it won't trip. This isn't because they're not on the same circuit, because I wired them all on one circuit. The reason why the GFCI won't trip is because the downstream outlets have a bootleg ground. To make matters worse for the home inspector, our testers show proper polarity and grounding. So how do we know the outlet is improperly wired if the tester shows correct? Well, we could pull out our voltage sniffer, but even that test will be inconclusive. Better yet, use the knowledge you have. If the branch circuits are grounded, then you should see a corresponding number of circuit grounds in the panel box. While this isn't conclusive, it's enough evidence to recommend an electrician come out and verify proper grounding of the branch circuits. But there's another problem that may be present, and we need to check for it when we suspect bootleg grounds. It's when someone has wired a bootleg ground and reversed the polarity. When this is done, both neutral and ground become hot, and it's dangerous. Imagine plugging your electric guitar into a reverse polarity bootleg ground outlet. The strings on the guitar will be hot. Touch them with both hands, and you're guaranteed to feel the raw power of rock and roll. With a voltage sniffer you can pick up at your local hardware store, you may not be able to find a bootleg ground, but you can see a symptom of reverse polarity with a bootleg ground. A normal test at hot changes the tester to red and it beeps. But when you get anywhere near the reverse polarity bootleg ground outlet, it turns red and it beeps. While this doesn't verify a reverse polarity bootleg ground outlet, it is an indication of a serious problem. It should be reported and recommended to be reevaluated and repaired by a qualified electrician. Now here's how the NEC recommends ungrounded circuits be wired legally. Simply protect them with a GFCI. Your tester will show open ground, but a GFCI doesn't need a ground to protect the circuit. It won't trip with your tester, but it will trip with the test button at the outlet. It also doesn't provide protection for anything plugged into it, but it will protect occupants from a shock hazard.
Okay, so in an older house, likely wired with two wire circuits throughout the house, no circuit grounds in the panel, and yet all the three-pronged outlets read proper polarity and grounding. That's enough to defer the situation to an electrician and recommend repair. It is likely that there are bootleg grounds. No, you can't see them, but we don't necessarily have to see a crack in the heat exchanger to report that either. So, we can't always rely on technology to do our jobs. Fancy gadgets, gizmos, and expensive testing devices, those are great, they're a lot of fun, but they're not necessary. We don't need to take the outlet apart, we don't need to confirm that the problem is a bootleg ground, we report the conditions that we saw.
Thanks again for watching. If you like what you're seeing on our website, hit like and subscribe on our YouTube channel to stay up to date on important new videos.